to start, we are going to go with the number one movie at the box office this week. The first movie to dethrone Avatar since Avatar came out. It is the latest from M Night Shyamalan. We are talking about Knock at the Cabin. This is going to be a good conversation. I can tell already. This is going to be good. This is going to be good. All right. I'm starting this one out. Knock at the Cabin, like I said, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, written by M. Night Shyamalan, and a few others, Steve Desmond, Michael Sherman. This movie stars Dave Bautista, Rupert Grint, Nikki Amuka Bird, and Abby Quinn as these four people who start seeing visions that the end of the world is coming, and they see that they need to go to this random cabin in the woods and ask a family, that the family that is there, to sacrifice one of their family members to save the world. And do they save their family, or do they save the world? And that family is played by Ben Aldridge, Jonathan Groff, and Kristen Cui as their young adopted daughter Wen. And as it progresses, and they say, if you say no, something happens. And as things start happening, you start to wonder, is this a matter of circumstance? Is this actually happening? Is this it becomes a movie about faith and believing in something more than yourself? It becomes a movie about what are you willing to sacrifice for the greater good? All right, I'll just say it. I absolutely loved this movie. I thought it worked on like every level. It worked. It was. I looking at this movie, looking at the first trailer, I thought this movie looked horrible, and I didn't really want to see any more. And I didn't. I think I watched the second trailer maybe once because I didn't really want to know any more than this really weird, horrible trailer that we saw. And the best version of this movie that could have happened, it was better than that, I felt. And I think one of the main reasons it works is because Dave Bautista is so good in this, being this towering, menacing character, but with this deep sensitivity to him and how he handles this situation. The couple in it, Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge, they have some a really interesting dynamic as well, where you have one that's bitter and angry at the world and is lashing out, while the other is quiet and contemplative and wondering how this all plays into everything, and is much more willing to make a step of faith. The other characters play a perfect supporting role. When the end comes, I think it ends perfectly. You could, sure, you may be able to pull some corniness out of the ending, but because of the whole setup to it, it works great. I loved it. This is 4-star movie, Knock at the Cabin. I couldn't believe it, but when I got done with this movie, I texted my wife because she asked me how it was, and I said, this movie freaking rocks. And I haven't been able to shake it. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I watched it Friday night. It's when M. Night Shyamalan is at his best, this is what it looks like. It's simple. It's quiet. There's not much to it. There's some flashback scenes that get thrown in, but they are quick and you hop right back into what's going on. So it works really well. And it just gives the little bit of context you need without dwelling on it. It's not too long. I loved it. I absolutely loved this movie. I thought it worked. It worked on every level. 4 stars. So since I'm giving a Shyamalan movie 4 stars, we're going to Todd next. Todd,
Yeah.
what did you think?
Well, you also liked Old, so I don't know. I mean,
I gave 3. It was Old was fine. Old was fine.
okay, well, I am not a Shyamalan fan. Like, there's a certain, like, I didn't want to see this movie. There's a certain level of embarrassment going to buy a ticket to a Shyamalan movie. It's like if you're wearing a Pauly Shore t-shirt or something, or like watching generic Jason Statham movie, or saying like Lord of the Rings is better than Star Wars. Like, it's just like, okay, that guy has no intellect. They're going to watch a Shyamalan movie. But anyway, this one is actually based on a book, and he has co-writers, so there are some ideas there. But if they actually add up to something or make any sense, that's a different question. For some reason in this movie, Shyamalan has is obsessed with close-ups of the face. Like there is no mise-en-scène established in the entire movie. I have no idea what was going on because you can't see anything other than the face of the actors, and the actors are bad. Other than Dave Bautista, he's pretty good, but the other ones, Rupert Grint, Abby Quinn, and Nikki and Muka Bird, I'm not really familiar with them. They weren't any good, and of course, Carrie Elwes was awful. I mean, Jonathan Groff or whatever his name is.
Carrie Elwes.
He does look like Carrie Elwes.
Yeah, he does.
Did we recast him as Carrie Elwes in Liar Liar?
Yeah,
if we did,
we both did. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Because if not, that would have been a missed opportunity.
Yeah. It was because of the Matrix trailer.
That's right.
I don't know. There's some crazy shit that happens in this movie. Some of it's compelling, and there's interesting talking points and some moments that work. But the movie is pretty much nonsense. Like, if you try to dissect it after the movie's over, you just spin around and realize that the filmmaker isn't smart enough to really land it completely. The one thing I will say is the R-ratedness and body count is pretty impressive because for a Shyamalan movie, he normally tries to make his movies this watered down PG-13 suspense film purgatory, but he actually does make this very rated R, and it's kind of weird. It had me thinking, but which is more than I could say for most of his movies. But what exactly is he trying to say, and why is he saying it? I don't really know, but at least the ending isn't some like really dumb ambiguity that most movies of this kind do. But he does spell it out and gives you his thesis of the movie in a very melodramatic scene. There are some cager elements to this movie, but not really the good ones. Like there's some like knowing in there, a little bit next kind of thing. I don't know. It's one of Shyamalan's best films, but that doesn't make it better than 2 stars.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, to your point, I mean the ending is not like your typical Shyamalan ending. It's not like the twist ending that you expect to see in a Shyamalan movie. It legit like it just plays out what has to play out. All right.
Yeah.
Zach, split it.
All right. Well, I'm splitting it, of course. I can see points that both of you are making. This is pretty far off. 4 stars and 2 stars. That's like Man Call Auto territory, maybe.
Nobody's seen it.
No one else has seen it. You guys are gonna love it.
Bring it up. Okay, so I was trying to think what's the athlete comp for M Night Shyamalan. I was really trying to think of like a Philadelphia athlete. The only one I could really think of was Kurt Warner because the guy hits a home run with his first movie. The Sixth Sense gets all these Oscar nominations. It's like Warner wins his Super Bowl right away. The career is the limitless potential. And then we realize that, Kurt Warner has a fatal flaw, which is that he throws interceptions and also is slower than most 80-year-olds. And M. Night Shyamalan's fatal flaw is his dialogue. His dialogue is awful. He should never write. Now, Todd did note that this was based on a book, and I think this greatly helps this movie. And this movie had like Todd was saying, a very high body count for a Shyamalan movie, very low bad dialogue count for a Shyamalan movie. I was impressed. He resisted the urge, the temptation to make stupid jokes and to phrase things in weird ways. Like Zooey Deschanel in The Happening when she says it's the worst thing that you could possibly imagine that has ever been existed before. Like, he loves that dialogue that goes back on itself and is almost like a tongue twister or something. I'm giving this movie thumbs up. I'm not as enthusiastic about it as Terry is. I was pretty riveted the whole time. I did not know where the movie was going. This is like Shyamalan as Kurt Warner on the Cardinals. He's on the comeback trail. I didn't think Old was very good, but I did like Split a lot. He's definitely out of the last Airbender phase of his career, which was the Giants' career for Warner. I'll end that analogy. It's a stupid analogy. But I think Shyamalan's a really talented filmmaker. I think he has a unique style. And he lays off the surprise endings. I think that was getting old about 15 years ago. So I did like that. I mean, maybe that's my biggest criticism of the movie is that, quite honestly, it's a very sort of like, I'm not going to say by the book, but it doesn't do anything that you wouldn't expect it to do, except for be better than you'd expect it to be it. Like, it's not reinventing the genre in any way. It doesn't really take a whole lot of risks, I don't think, in the storytelling. Another criticism that I had of it while watching it was, Shyamalan is bad with special effects, always has been. And he's also really bad with newscasts because, big shit tends to happen in movies. And the same here, the newscasts in this movie are really bad CGI. The audience actually laughed when the first plane went down and it looked like Shyamalan ripped a green screen explosion from YouTube, like royalty free. So I think that got some laughs. But here's the thing. This is what was interesting about it. So his TV and his CGI is bad. It kind of helps the movie, though, in a way, because the main characters also can't really believe that those newscasts are real. It actually, in a way, helps propel the story, and it helps propel this notion that Dave Bautista and his cadre are just a bunch of religious fanatics who don't know what the hell they're talking about. That was a surprising and fascinating element. I don't know if Shyamalan is smart enough to realize that is, an effective use of bad special effects, but I kind of dug it. And then I guess I'll end by saying this movie did something to me that I have not experienced in quite a while. And yeah, I'm one of those people that wears a Pauly Shore t-shirt, Todd, but like I kind of felt dread watching this movie. Like in the first 30 minutes, I think the setup is great in this movie. And you do sort of feel like every hour that goes by and you know what's going to happen. The movie kind of sets up this pattern, this routine, and you know where it's going. And, it made me feel dread. And I don't know if I'd really want to watch this movie again. It doesn't have a high rewatchability factor, but that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It was a really chillingly effective movie. So I give it 3 stars.
Well, I think it's rewatchable. I don't know. I've been obsessed with this movie over the last few days. I like what you said about the special effects almost helping in the unbelievability the characters are feeling. That's
There's no way he thought that. He put himself in those newscasts. I don't know.
He was
in the infomercial.
He was in the infomercial, yeah.
Now that was obviously the minor character award winner. I really want to know more about that knife and the apron he was wearing. That deserves a movie on its own, along with Christopher McDonald and Requiem for a Dream. Maybe they're from the same cinematic universe, but no, I dug the movie, and it didn't do anything crazy, which I think helps Shyamalan. When Shyamalan tries to do too much crazy stuff, like Kurt Warner trying to scramble or fumble a ball or something like that, it's no good. But when he just does what he's supposed to do, instead of taking crazy risks, it's an effective filmmaking.
So you weren't bothered by the fact that you don't see anything for the first half hour of the movie except people's eyes?
I thought the first half hour was the strongest part of the movie. I loved the setup.
Yeah,
there was no setup. There's nothing happening except watching people's faces.
It was chilling. It was like Silence of the Lambs. Jonathan Demme used close-ups of people's faces too. It was really awesome. Dave Bautista.
But you don't get the sense of any sort of the layout of the place or anything. You have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that's
around
the point. They're secluded in the wilderness. They don't know if these things are actually happening or not. That's a smart decision.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, you're saying that he needs more like mise en scène, more scenery, but like what else is there? They're secluded. It's meant to be.
It's a giant cabin, and you don't get the sense of anything other than looking at their eyes, because that's all you see for the first half hour of the movie, and it was really obnoxious.
No, I don't
think he's ever done that before. He's just obsessed with it for some reason in this movie.
I thought it worked.
A lot of close-ups too.
I thought it worked. Because really what you're doing is you're staring into their souls. You're trying to see if it's a game of BS in a lot of ways. Who's bluffing in this, or is there a bluff in this? I thought it was fascinating, and I love that the first scene of the movie is Dave Bautista walking up to the girl. Right, that's in the trailer. But there's all sorts of setup before that, even in the trailer. That turns out to be a flashback later. I love that it just starts. And it's like the first thing you see is they're walking up to the cabin and this is going down. And the entire, 100-minute runtime is you are in it. And yeah.
Yeah, I also like that Wen's favorite movie was Kiki's Delivery Service. That was a great answer to that question. And Jonathan Groff / Carrie Elwes is really great. I did not think at all about King George, but if I did, it went away immediately because he's really good in this movie. I thought all the actors were really good. I think Terry's a little over enthusiastic because it's February, okay, and there's not a lot of good movies out. I get it. I don't think it's that good, I think you had a similar reaction to Split when that came out. You loved that.
I gave Split 4 stars as well.
I don't think they're quite that good, but they
I'm
are good.
I'm a
We
Shyamalan
root for him.
fan.
We like Shyamalan. It's great when he makes good movies.
We
I
don't
gave
like
Old 3
Shyamalan on
You don't like
this podcast.
Shyamalan.
I think I've given one of his movies thumbs up. That was Unbreakable. Not a fan of The Sixth Sense. I can't stay awake during that movie, and all his other movies pretty much are garbage, except for The Happening. It's interesting.
I've never seen The Happening. Old, I gave 3 stars too. I'm actually a fan of Lady in the Water.
Yeah, you are, and you probably like Glass too.
I haven't watched Glass yet, actually. I probably should.
Yeah, I'm surprised, Todd, you didn't bring up Take Shelter. I also thought of Take Shelter during this movie, which I think touched on a lot of similar themes. And
Oh yeah,
Jeff,
but that movie
Jeff Nichols
actually
could have
has
directed this movie, too.
direction. Like you can understand what they're getting after, but here it's like the movie's over and you're just like, what is he actually trying to say? I don't think he knows.
Yeah, I liked your comparison to Knowing, though. No, I did write down Knowing as a comp as well, just because that movie also had a sense of like, is this shit real or not? I like movies like that. I like the movies that say you don't know if it's real or not. And had Shyamalan filmed more shit outside and more exteriors, we would have known more. And I think that takes away some of it.
So is this just a COVID production? Is that why he's like, no, you can't even go outside? Like we're quarantined in this house. Like, like we're only gonna see each other.
Before we go on, so just to recap, Knock at the Cabin, I gave it 4 stars. Zach gave it 3. Todd gave it 2. It's in theaters now. Go see it. Don't listen to Todd. Go see this movie. Todd just hates Shyamalan.